He would keep the bodies in his flat for prolonged periods, sometimes for weeks, cleaning, dressing, and talking to the corpses, driven by a perverse need for companionship. Hello, true crime fans, and welcome to Behind the Yellow Tape. Today, we delve into one of the most chilling cases in British criminal history, the murders committed by Dennis Nilson, known as the Muswell Hill murderer. Nilson was a seemingly ordinary civil servant whose private life concealed the monstrous acts of a serial killer. Born in 1945, Nilson served in the British Army before joining the Metropolitan Police and later the Civil Service. He carried a deep sense of loneliness and a troubled personal life. In the late 1970s, he began preying on vulnerable young men, often homeless or gay men involved in sex work, in the bars and streets of London. His victims were largely men who had fallen through society's cracks, making their disappearance less likely to be immediately noticed. His first known murder occurred in December 1978 at his home address in 195 Melrose Avenue, Cricklewood. The victim was 14-year-old Stephen Dean. This act opened the floodgates. Nilson's MO was horrifyingly consistent. He would lure his victims back to his flat, offer them food and drink, and often engage in intimacy. He would then strangle or drown them, typically after they had fallen asleep or passed out. The true horror of the case lies in what he did after the murders. Nilson was a necrophile, and he would keep the bodies in his flat for prolonged periods, sometimes for weeks, cleaning, dressing, and talking to the corpses, driven by a perverse need for companionship. Eventually, he would attempt to dispose of the remains. At the Melrose Avenue address, he initially burned the bodies in the garden. However, as the number of victims grew, estimated to be at least 15 young men and boys, he resorted to building large bonfires in the garden to burn the remains. In 1981, Nilson moved to a top-floor flat at 23 Cranley Gardens, Muswell Hill. This move changed his disposal method and ultimately led to his capture. No longer having a garden, he began dismembering the corpses in his bath. The larger body parts were flushed down the toilet, while the remaining flesh and bone were boiled to remove tissue before being discarded with the household rubbish. It was the flushing of the human remains that brought his reign of terror to an end. In February 1983, a blockage was reported in the drains outside 23 Cranley Gardens. A plumber was called, and upon investigating the foul-smelling obstruction, he found fragments of human flesh and bone. The police were called immediately. When officers arrived at Nilson's flat, they found a strong, sweet smell. Confronted with the evidence, Dennis Nilson did not deny his crimes. Instead, he simply asked, "Is it all over then?" He then chillingly confessed to a staggering number of murders, leading police back to his previous address where more remains were unearthed. In 1983, Dennis Nilson was tried for 6 murders and 2 attempted murders. Due to the difficulty in identifying all the remains, the final number of victims he confessed to was 15, though he was legally convicted for the ones where sufficient evidence remained. He was found guilty and sentenced to life imprisonment with a recommendation that he should never be released. Dennis Nilson died in prison in 2018 at the age of 72. His case remains a dark testament to the hidden capacity for evil and exposed deep flaws in society's ability to protect its most vulnerable members. Thank you for listening today, and remember, stay behind the yellow tape.